Viewers all around the world, I go by the name Ufori Praise, a level 300 student in the history department at the University of Education, Winneba. In this video, I'll be talking about some perspectives and approaches of feminism. One may ask, what is feminism? Or when you hear the term feminism, what comes in mind? The global idea of feminism refers to the belief that men and women deserve equality in all opportunities, treatment, respect, and social rights. In this my submission, I'll be talking about types or some feminism. I will list them. 1, we have radical feminism. 2, we have liberal feminism. 3, we have Marxist or socialist feminism. We also have intersectional feminism. And lastly, we have what is called cultural feminism. In this video, I will talk about 3 of them. I'm going to highlight and explain 3 of them. I'll talk about the radical feminism, liberal feminism, and Marxist or socialist feminism. As I said initially, feminists point out that most cultures, men have benefited more than women. So initially, I said that feminism has to do with what? Equality, right? Okay, let's look at radical feminism. Fast forward. We'll talk about radical feminism. Radical feminism is closely tied to the second wave of feminism, which occurred from the early 1960s into 1980s and was most popular in the United States and Europe. Radical feminism fought to overthrow the patriarchal structure. Radical feminism would argue that the entire traditional family system is sexist. Men are expected to work outside the home while women are expected to care for children and clean the house. Let's look at some of the movement of feminism. Take Back the Night is one movement of feminism. It started in the 1970s. Its aim is to raise awareness about sexual violence and make public spaces for women. Being said, we are going to look at some of the feminists in radical feminism. Some of the feminists include Andrea Dworkin and Catherine McKinnon. These people argue that pornography on the media reinforces male control over women. Let's look at some of the impact of radical feminism. As I said initially, some of the impact of radical feminism is that it helped fight for ending sexual violence or violence against women. And some of the violence are sexual violence and domestic violence. In addition, I will talk about the liberal feminism. So the liberal feminism is rooted in classical ideology which promotes or which talks about freedom, individualism, and equality. It also advocates for change through legal and political reform. Some of the movement in the liberal feminism includes the Seneca Falls Convention in the 1848 in the United States. As being said, let's look at some of the activists. Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Lucretia Mott, they wrote a declaration on Sentiment, a document that demands equal pay and rights of women. Moreover, we will look at some of the importance or the impact of the liberal feminism. So, the liberal feminism brought about equal pay and also brought about the right to vote in the United States and also the United Kingdom. So, it was even illegal in the United States that the work that men were doing, if women were also doing the same job and were being paid less, it was illegal. And the manager or the manageress or the company as a whole could be sued. So as a result of the liberal feminism, it brought about what? Equal payment in terms of salary and wages. In furtherance, I'm going to talk about the Marxist or socialist feminism. So the Marxist or socialist feminism is deeply connected to economic systems, especially capitalism. It argues that women are oppressed, not just because of their gender, but also because of how wealth and power are controlled in society. Because the society was a patriarchal one. So, money, properties, and jobs were all controlled by men. And the women were expected to stay at what? At home, right? The perspective of capitalism or the idea is from Karl Marx, as we already know. So let's look at some of the feminists or activists of Marxist or socialist feminism. And they include Sylvia Federici and Angela Davis. They argue that capitalism benefits from women unpaid domestic labor such as cooking, cleaning, raising children, and other domestic spheres or other domestic roles. Even in some societies, men raised their children, their biological children, to inherit from their properties. So therefore, they limit the women in domestic spheres. So women could not own properties. Women could not own or acquire jobs for themselves. Being said, let's look at some of the impacts of Marxist or socialist feminism. So, some of the impact was that women began to also take a role in jobs. And also they believe that women work should be valued just as men work in factories. So irrespective of the work that women were doing, they should be valued. They should be given a sense of what? A sense of prestige, a sense of importance. My viewers, I would like us to recap upon what we have learned. So, as I said initially, we spoke about some of the feminist approaches. So, some of them are the liberal feminism, the radical feminism, the Marxist feminism, the intersectional feminism, and also the cultural feminism. And we spoke about what? We spoke about three of them. And they are the liberal, radical, and Marxist. And we also spoke about some of the movements and also some of the impact and some of the activists. Thank you for watching, and we meet in our next discussion.